here in Berlin for Gran Turismo World Series 2. How is this one going to play out, and how are the championship tables going to reflect the results as we head further into the World Series of this season? Well, Kylian Drumont continues the strong momentum for Subaru as they line up on pole position here today with Thomas Leboutelet and BMW alongside. Then it's Porsche. Disappointment in London. They bounce back to start P3 ahead of Nikolai Sejak in fourth position, the Polish driver who makes his debut for Nissan. Then it's Pole Europe for Mazda, P5. Valerio Gallo in the Honda NSX is sixth on the grid. Lucas Bonelli lines up P7 for Mercedes AMG, and Al Flair with the Saudi Arabian driver for Toyota, P8. De Bruyne lines up P9, and then you've got Giorgio Mangano in 10th position for Lexus. João Jesus for Ferrari in 11th position, and Jay Murphy, the McLaren driver. A lot of support for him here tonight. And now, of course, our first look at the tyre strategies for the first time. Now, we can see the top two, Drumont and Leboutelet, they've started on the soft competitive tyre, which to me indicates that they're going to try and make a break early.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've seen the pace from Drumont in qualifying, and of course Leboutelet, both very quick over a single lap. Last thing they want to do is ruin the ability to run that pace by running in a pack. So, yeah, go for soft tyre. I'm surprised to see Sejak there running the hard tyre in P4. So he will be basically in the way of all the medium runners behind, but the longer he can keep them there, the better for his race. So definitely some strategy in those tyre calls already. Yeah,
it seems like he's sort of trying to go ugly early, as it were. Get those hard tyres out of the way as soon as he possibly can. Hold the pack up while they're all quite close behind, and see whether he can use that to his advantage. Well, let's see what will happen. Who has called the strategy right? Who will be taking the checkered flag and those all-important 6 points? We're about to find out as Gran Turismo World Series 2 for the Manufacturers' Cup here in Berlin is underway. Drumont and Subaru lead them down towards the first corner, followed by Leboutelet and then Serrano and then Sejak in the Porsche and the Nissan respectively. Don't expect any dive bombs down into that first corner, but Serrano closing up. I say that, there are some dive bombs taking place as Jura is making hay whilst the sun shines. He's already on the attack against Sejak, but Sejak goes back through on Valerio Gallo as well as Jura, back up into fourth. So moves being made in the mid-pack there, and Sejak looking a little bit vulnerable as we expected on those hard tyres.
Yeah, Sejak there showing Jura the outside of the circuit. Really hard defending early on, but you're seeing the difference there, those hard tyres. They take a while to fire up. They're going to be cold right now. When they're cold, they have less grip. So right now, Jura, Bonelli, Gallo all making advantage of the fact they have a softer compound, is up to temperature quicker, and then is able to drive by him like he's standing still. You could argue maybe that's not a bad thing because they're not going to squabble so much, but if you're Sejak, you've gone from fourth to seventh in about 3 corners.
Yeah, losing track position means, of course, you're going to have to gain that a little bit later on. You can see fairly robust driving from Sejak coming through the Michael Schumacher S there as well. He's just got Alifa in the Lamborghini right behind him, who's on the medium compound of tyres. Then you've got 3 other hard shod runners. Meanwhile, sharp end of this race, nothing really to report from Drumont and Leboutelet. They've cleared off about a second or so ahead of Jose Serrano, as one would begin to expect. First corner incident here is under investigation, as we can see on our screen as well. We'd love to get a replay of that and see exactly what happened. We did see some dive bombs to the inside there for Pole Euro, but was there a bit more that meets the eye that we perhaps didn't quite manage to make a break of? Either way, we go on to the Nordschleife layout for the first time, and it's Drumont in front from Leboutelet, and now is where those soft tyres on these medium speed corners are going to be really having their advantage.
Yeah, and you wouldn't know the GP circuit is in any way related to this track. When you get onto it, it's completely different. You go from long runoffs to barriers being far away, gravel traps, to basically, if you make a mistake, you are in that barrier. And lots of curbs here, you have to memorise which ones you can and which ones you can't touch. It's a unique challenge just to get around here on your own, let alone when you're sharing the circuit with 11 other maniacs. So a lot of fun there. But speaking of maniacs, it's Valerio Gallo in the NSX. Very, very fast driver and trying to close the gap between himself and Jose Serrano. So Serrano is the leader of the medium runners. This is something you have to keep an eye on right now. As we go to the front of the field, Drumont having to try and defend from Thomas Leboutelet. He's going to look maybe around the outside here. Not really a spot to get that done. But again, we're seeing the Achilles heel of that Subaru. They've been able to just drive up to the back of it, but decides better of it as Thomas Leboutelet. He's going to stay in second place for now.
Drumont a little bit deep, though, going into that right-hander. I wonder if that might have compromised him a little bit, but he's certainly feeling the pressure here of his compatriot. The two Frenchmen at the sharp end of this this race, and you can see how Leboutelet is able to use that slipstream to his advantage to close up. I don't think he's going to invent something into this section of the circuit, because it will both send them into the barrier, and indeed Leboutelet thinks better of it. But the question is here for Kylian Drumont, how long can he keep Leboutelet behind? Is it going to cost them time, though, as well? Because Serrano's there, 2 seconds off the back of them. If the top two start squabbling amongst one another, all that's going to do is bring them back into the gap that they've created and bring Serrano, Gallo, potentially, into play for this.
Yeah, think of the long game here, because everyone's got different strategies, everyone's trying their own little thing here. So I think if I'm Thomas Leboutelet in that BMW, I'm thinking, right, okay, I know I'm going to pass this guy on the back straight if I'm within half a second. So I'll just stay there for now and let this guy pull me along, because in the medium speed corners, that Subaru is super quick. Anyway, back to T1. I think there was an incident here with Giorgio Mangano. Contact there. Oh, there's a Supra there. Toyota getting spun, kind of brilliant, but then Mangano getting spat out by João Jesus there, so I'm not quite sure. No further action from the stewards. I think that was just everyone trying to go for the same bit of tarmac there, didn't they?
It's difficult, isn't it, when it concertinas up in corners like that, especially in the first corner, and you know it's not particularly wide part of the circuit. It really does bottleneck up, so I guess race direction just deeming it, you know, first corner dramas, don't do it again. As long as that doesn't happen any further times, then it should be all right. So let's look at the drivers here who are on the hard compounds of tyres, the likes of Sejak, Jesus, De Bruyne and Murphy. How are they going to play this one? Because, of course, they're hemorrhaging time at the moment. They're sort of taking the pain early on, but in theory, the race will come back to them in the latter stages, depending on what strategies they go for. You can see that brought up on our screen at the moment. You can get 2 laps out of the soft tyres if you're particularly careful. But if you're the likes of Leboutelet and Drumont, I mean, look, they've cleared on 3 seconds at the sharp end of this one. They're not hanging about here. They're not saving their tyres, are they?
Yeah, but look at this as well. The difference here in speed up the hill. Just in that draft, I'm surprised Leboutelet went for 6th gear there, maybe just to save that little bit of fuel. Fuel is also a concern around here, by the way. You have to make sure you're fueled up the right amount to get to the end. Sounds simple, but it's hard to do in practice when you're there driving these things around the ring. But yeah, as you say, Tom, like, it's just trying to make sure you don't fall too far back at this point. And I get the impression that Leboutelet is just kind of biding his time. We see the background there, Jose Serrano. That is the gap visually to third position and the start of those medium runners. So for the carousel for the first time, great bit of racetrack there. You really feel the car fighting for its life through there, and Gallo there leading the charge for 4th place onwards. But I say, if anything, falling back from Serrano a little bit.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this one plays out, because I was mentioning about the hard shot runners, you know, damage and imitation for them, but exactly the same story for the medium shot runners. You've got now 3 sort of sets of drivers, all in their own group, all running their own strategies, and this is what happens in the Manufacturers' Cup when you have races like this, is that, you know, they're not necessarily the most action-packed ones in the first couple of laps, but towards the end, once all the strategies all work out, the fuel stops, the tyre saving and so on and so forth, once they've all taken place, you get a really exciting crescendo to this race. So the likes of Drumont and Leboutelet, fine, the race is great for them in these early stages of it, but the latter stages, they're going to be taking that pain that the drivers on the medium and the hard runners are suffering from now, so they're going to be slower towards the end of the race, and the converse for those behind.
Yeah, coming through the last third of the Nordschleife. Now, my favourite bit of racetrack this, it's just so fast, so flowing. You have to really trust the car through here, especially through this section here. You come over the Flansgarten jump, you see it coming off the floor there, and then you're met immediately with the Stefan Beloff S coming up now, where the car just skips all over the place. You almost have to just trust in that mysterious aerodynamic thing that you can't see, but it is there, and then just thread the car through the curves. It's an exhilarating piece of racetrack, but it is very much one at a time through there, as Gallo has pulled away slightly from Pole Euro. Now, what I'm interested in seeing now is whether Drumont has managed to gap Leboutelet, which he has a little bit, a second now. That is kind of getting out of draft range, so that might mean Leboutelet won't be able to pass here going down towards T1.
Yeah, let's see whether Leboutelet can use the straight line speed to his advantage, if he can close up, as you say, from that gap that has been created. What about Lucas Benelli, Mercedes-AMG? Benelli, we can see him there, very interesting driving position that he has. He sort of sits quite close to the wheel, almost on it, really, whereas you look at Pol Jura, much more relaxed in terms of his arm positioning there. And now Benelli has got the bit between his teeth, because he's got the slipstream and he's got the straight line speed to take advantage of Pol Jura as we come down the Döttinger Höhe. Side by side we go between the Mazda and the Mercedes. It's going to be to be nice and easy for the Mercedes to go through. But what about, yeah, exactly that, what I was about to say, the Honda, because they're going to get boxed in here. Valerio Gallo loses one place, loses 2 places potentially, because Paul Ura is now side by side with Gallo as they come up and over the rise. It's always a bit tense and a bit sketchy coming through here 2 by 2, but Gallo just decides to not fight it too hard as the top 2 at the sharp end of this one come into the pit lane at the end of the first lap off the soft tyres. Now, which way are they going to go in terms of their strategy?
Yeah, fresh set of the virtual Dunlop tyres going on. Our first time, our first Dunlop pit stop, I think this is, Tom. So cool to have Dunlop, of course, now as official partner of the Gran Turismo World Series. What's going on, though? So softs come off, mediums go on there for Drummond, same for Le Bouteille as well. Kind of Bruin coming in, getting off those hard compounded tyres early, only doing 1 lap on those. So I guess going for 3 on the medium then, or 4 on the medium, it must be.
It's going to be an interesting one to see how that works out. You know, medium tyres, they're okay, but, you know, in terms of their longevity, certainly not as good as the hard tyres. The converse is the hard tyres are a few seconds a lap slower than the medium. So I guess he's just trying to take the pain for that and get off it. You can see there he's a full-time automotive engineering student, is Kai de Bruyne, so he's well-versed in sort of adapting to changes on the fly. And let's see whether that's one that will pay off for the Dutchman, who, of course, as we know, is still seeking his first podium in the Gran Turismo World Series. Meanwhile, sharp end of this race is now occupied by Jose Serrano, who's in the lead. Lucas Benelli, who, of course, we saw getting ahead of Ura and Gallo down the Dottinger at the end of the last lap, now sits in second in the Mercedes AMG. Ura's into third. Gallo's here just keeping a watching brief in 4th place. It's interesting as well, looking at the likes of Drummond and Le Bouteille, because they went from the soft to the medium tyres. I mean, Le Bouteille, he has to follow what Drummond's doing if he doesn't want to lose track position. That's the problem with being second on the road. You've kind of got to follow the strategy and then work it out later on. Yeah,
I mean, that's not always a bad thing, though, because I think if the positions are reversed, you'd just see the same sort of thing. You would see the Le Bouteille leading from Drummond. It would just be a waiting game. And sometimes it is that. I mean, it's a high-speed game of chess. I say that a lot in these broadcasts, because it is. These guys are at the level now where strategy often decides the race. The actual drive performance is so close, so we'll keep an eye on those and keep you informed. Benelli's struggling there for the first part of the Hudson Back complex, just trying to get the car turned in. Of course, that AMG front engine, so prone to sometimes a little bit of understeer. Looks like it's really struggling with the front end through there, but able to keep the pace for now. Meanwhile, looking down the field, Sejak on the hard compounded tyre is ahead of Giorgio Mangano, who started on the medium. So Sejak having a very good race at the moment, despite starting on that slower tyre.
Yeah, we know that Mangano, of course, was caught in some bother, don't we, down at that first corner, which kind of started a Lexus driver's race off on the back foot. They've, bear in mind, they're reigning champions. Lexus have had a dog's day so far of 2025. It's not been brilliant. Pointless in London and now down in 7th place for this. They'll be really hoping for fortune to favour them in the second half of this race, and also in the second half of the Gran Turismo World Series for 2025 as well. Benelli a little bit wide there, just going through that right-hander. Might allow Ura and Gallo to close up just a touch. It's, again, very much one at a time through this part of the lap, but you wonder whether Benelli's just starting to push a little bit harder, maybe just making a couple of mistakes and allowing a bit of a sniff of an opportunity here for Ura and Gallo possibly to see where Benelli is a little bit weaker, maybe on the exits of the corners or the entries to the corners, wherever it may be, and use that to their advantage to try and create an overtaking opportunity.
Yeah, I get the impression Benelli actually is maybe holding these guys up a little bit at the moment. We'll see, though. He needs to try and bridge that gap, because we know Paul Ura will go for a move. We know Gallo will go for a move if he sees one there, so always one to watch out for.
So Serrano it is that leads, 2.5 seconds to the sharp end of this race. He's still got the 3 hard shot runners of Sejak, Jesus and Murphy, the 3 newcomers, 3 out of 4 newcomers who are racing in this one. I have to say, Nafir Al-Fali, the Saudi Arabian driver making his debut in this event, doing a great job of things in the Lamborghini, currently sitting in P5. Meanwhile, this is Mangano returning the favour on Sejak, just coming through that left-hander.
Yeah, I think that's all the indicator on there from Sejak, just basically saying, yeah, go on, mate, off you go, don't worry about it, pull me along. And yeah, there they are. Jesus there as well, of course, right behind Sejak. And man, that's that 458. I haven't heard a V8 Ferrari like that for a while. Sounds great, that thing, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, you would say that, that you've just gone and bought one. And it's not a 458, but a Ferrari V8.
All right.
No, he's a cracking sounding car. It's a 9,000 RPM out of the box, that car. It's the last naturally aspirated V8 Ferrari ever made, and probably likely to have ever been made as well, with Jesus behind the wheel, piloting it in 8th position. Meanwhile, 2nd, 3rd and 4th still running nose to tail with one another. Benelli ahead of Jura, ahead of Valerio Gallo as they come over the rise. So all pretty steady at the sharp end of this one, but Serrano doing a good job of having built a gap actually to the trio of drivers. I say fairly steady because Jura is now on the attack against Benelli as they go side by side, and the door is going to open here for Gallo. There's a bit of contact in the mid part of that right-hander there as Benelli just sort of almost they merged into one. The upshot is the Brazilian driver drops 2 places.
Yeah, I mean, I saw that coming. I think now these guys have been waiting to sort of be released from Benelli, and I think we're probably going to see Benelli fall to the back of these guys now. He had a good effort having the Mercedes up there, but he just hasn't quite had the same level of precision and pace as these guys early on. So keep an eye on Paul Euro, keep an eye on Valerio Gallo to go through the carousel for the 2nd time. Still more than half of this race left, so a lot can happen at this point. A lot of pit stops still to come as well. Big question really is whether a lot of these medium runners are they going to box at the end of this lap.
Yeah, it's interesting looking at the safety times. They all look pretty good out there. I mean, they're not going to be as quick. Oh, as Drumont is a little bit deep there with Laboutelet all over his rear wing, and I just wonder whether Drumont's mistake is just going to give the opportunity here for Laboutelet to try and attack, and is he going to use that to his advantage? Where are they up the road to Murphy? About 1.3 seconds away from the Irish driver, so that could come into play here as well because Murphy's on a slower compound of tyre and could be a bit of a cork in the bottle. It might favour Laboutelet, it might favour Drumont if it works out, really. Let's have a look at what happened meanwhile with Benelli. So you've got Jura here on the outside. We're in a flat-out part of this circuit, and then Gallo is going to get a bit of a biff. Does a very good job to keep it on the straight and narrow. The upshot is, though, as we said, Benelli losing 2 places.
It was fine. I think it was fine. It's just hard racing, you know. They both came out okay, and I think that, yeah, no further action. From my point of view, anyway. But I'm not a steward, as much as I try to be.
Oh, Drumont on the inside there of Jay Murphy, and now this is important here for Thomas Laboutelet as well. He needs to get ahead of the Irish driver in that McLaren as soon as he possibly can, because all the time he's stuck behind him, he's losing track position, losing time that he's then going to have to gain back up later on in the race. And is Murphy going to have anything to do with defending it? He is. He sort of parks the car on the apex there, denies an opportunity for Laboutelet. So this is music to the ears of Kylian Drumont. Side by side they go. Laboutelet's got the inside line and surely will now finally take the position, but you know he's lost about a second or so in relation to his compatriots.
Yeah, that is going to be huge for the BMW's race there, because now they've lost that slipstream, they've lost that toe, and will he be able to get it back again? We know that Laboutelet has pace in that BMW, but has he got enough to claw back the gap to Kylian Drumont? This is the best pace for him down the straight here. That BMW does have legs, the Subaru does not. So let's see. But Drumont already now coming up to the back of the guys who haven't pitted so far. Oh, but Benelli back past Gallo.
Yep, so Benelli on the attack against Valerio Gallo coming down the Dossinger Her then. So the 2 medium shot runners still squabbling for position. The Mercedes is ahead for now, but what about Gallo in that Honda NSX? He's going to try and retaliate at the end as we come through the fast left hand, and we've already seen side-by-side action between these two. It just about stayed clean last time. This time, Benelli is able to hold firm ahead of the Italian as Serrano then comes into the pits from the lead of the race. Are the other medium shot runners all coming in? Looks like they are, aside from Valerio Gallo. He's decided to go for another lap.
Yeah, interestingly, I think that this is where the strategies are going to start to diverge. And it's like Knife Alfala doing the same thing as well. Also going for the...
So this is interesting, actually, because we were talking about this to Mikael Hizau yesterday, who is very much involved as part of balancing the performance of these cars, and he was saying that the mid-engined rear-wheel drive cars, i.e. the Honda NSX, the Lamborghini, etc., they're a bit easier on their tyres compared to the front-engine cars, like the Mercedes, like the BMW, for example, so, like the Lexus. So maybe they're using that mid-engine layout, and they've just got a bit more tyre life in their pocket compared to their competitors, and that's what is giving them the comfort to carry on.
Yeah, but the downside to running those mid-engine cars is they're a bit nicer on turn and they rotate better, but of course that means they're a bit more sketchy. They tend to wear the rears a bit quicker as well. So Gallo might be leading right now, but he's going to have a car that's going to be handling. It's going to be pretty tricky getting this thing around at pace on on these worn medium tyres. But Gallo, we know he's A very quick, very capable driver, our 2021 Nations Cup champion, of course. But as you say, yet to taste success in the Manufacturers' Cup.
Be interesting to see a comparison in the lap times here as well between the likes of Gallo and then Kylian Drumont, because they're both on the medium competitive tyres. Of course, Gallo's been on those from the start. Drumont has changed from the softs onto the medium, so they're both worn tyres, but Drumont's are in far better condition compared to Valerio Gallo. Where were we last time around? So Gallo was an 8:09, but of course we saw Drumont pitting last time around as well. So we'll keep an eye on the different sector times. At the moment, Gallo is looking pretty handy at the sharp end of this one. So let's see how he can work this one out, and also what the likes of Drumont and Le Boutelet can do. But the gap between Drumont and Le Boutelet, we saw it increasing courtesy of Jay Murphy sort of interjecting between the two. It's now up to 1.6 seconds, so out of slipstreaming range.
You know, importantly, Gallo has got something that not really anyone else has right now, which is a nice, big, clear circuit in front of him. So right now, he's just driving into that gap and trying to make as much of a gap as possible.
Now, I was talking about Mikael Hazal a few moments ago, and this is by magic. He's come and joined us in the commentary box. Mick, great to have you here. How are you?
Hey, good, and you guys?
Very good. All the better for having you here. This is going to be, I think, the thinking driver's race, this one, isn't it? There's a lot of different strategies going on in terms of tyres and in terms of fuel. How do you see this one working out? Who, in your opinion, having watched it from the sidelines at the moment, is in a prime position?
So, like, you already talked about the tyre wear before, like the different strategies where some of the other drivers already went into the pits at the end of lap 2. Personally, when I saw that, I was already quite surprised to see them coming in so early, because normally you would try to use the softer tyre compound as long and as much as possible. So I'm kind of scared of their second lap on the soft tyre compound, so you might see some drama towards the end of the race.
So this is for the drivers that pit on the medium tyres at the moment. They're going to do 2 laps on the hard. Let's have a look here. This is what cost Le Boutelet ultimately against Jay Murphy. Murphy doing his own race, entitled to be in that position, but Le Boutelet, of course, has now hemorrhaged time to Drumont, and that's a big gap that he's now going to make up.
Yeah, but I think in those moments, like, if you're Jay Murphy, you know you're going to get passed by that guy. There's no point fighting, and you both cost each other time at that point. So, I mean, as you say, definitely his own race, but he just cost himself time in the end. But I mean, Mick, of course, you've driven here tons of times. Virtually, you know these cars inside out. What would you say is the key factor to getting around here quickly and in one piece? I mean, all these different guys with different machinery as well. So,
I think the biggest factor for this track is confidence. If you don't have the confidence to use the curves or like to know your car well around the circuit, then you're automatically going to end up losing a lot of time here, and we are already talking about the longest circuit in the world. So obviously there are a few cars on the track which are like easy to drive compared to a few other cars here, such as the Honda and the Ferrari, in my opinion, are a bit harder to drive than some of the other FR cars out there. But nevertheless, we are talking about the best drivers here in the world, and usually I also expect them to have like a lot of confidence in their own car.
So we have Kylian Drumont now in the Subaru going up the inside of Giorgio Manglo. Just lets him through there. As I said before, just make sure to lose as little time as possible. And with Valerio Gallo, he's gone for that third lap on the medium tyres. They're pretty worn right now. That car's mid-engine. What can he be expecting handling-wise now for the second half of this lap?
I think he should be still fine towards the end of the lap, because I expect him to do either 1 lap on a hard tyre and then to finish off the race on 2 laps on softs, because normally the lighter your car is, it's also going to be more gentle on your tyres, and I think that's the objective of Valerio here.
Well, we're talking about the difference between the medium tyres and who's on worn tyres and who's on less worn tyres. Drumont, of course, changed over from the softs at the start of this one over to the medium tyres. He's now, of course, driving like he's left the gas on here, really, isn't he? Because he's up into third place ahead of Giorgio Mangano, and again, that gap between himself and Thomas Le Boutelet, I mean, it's not really increased. It's still about 1.5 seconds, relatively speaking, but it's pretty stable between those two at the moment. So be keen to see how quickly Le Boutelet is going to be able to dispose of Mangano here, because again, this could cost him time, and ultimately it's going to mean that he's going to have to try and make that time up later on in the race.
I'm also a bit scared to see Mangano, due to the tyre life of his medium tyres at the moment, it's going to hold up Thomas Le Boutelet from the downhill section onwards, but maybe he can also try to overtake Mangano like Kylian did on Jay Murphy on the previous lap, if he's able to do that, then it's still anything open for the fight for the victory.
Well, catching the wrong driver at the wrong time on this circuit, Jimmy, as you well know, is a difficult thing to have to contend with. How do you manage that frustration inside the cockpit when you know you've got a quicker car, you know you're going to be able to find your way through? How do you do it?
Let me tell you, I'm glad there's not a mic in that cockpit, because you should hear me. I mean, you might have heard the Frank Stippler thing from a little while ago.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Either that, or I am glued to the high beam button. Get out of the way, move. There you go, yeah. Through goes the Buttigieg there, getting it done. And again, I think Mangano, Giorgio's been around for a long time. He knows the score. He's not going to sit there on the racing line and cost them both time. But gets out of the way, does it in a way that costs him as little time as possible. But yeah, good for now. Interestingly, Gallo's gap at the front has gone up now to 7 seconds. It was 4.9 at the start of the lap, but of course he hasn't pitted yet as well. So Drummond and Gallo, the ones to watch right now, I think, as well as Le Buttigieg also has taken his pit stop.
So how's this one going to play out? Because of course Drummond and Le Buttigieg, they're going to be on the hard tyres for the closing stages of this race, whereas the likes of Valerio Gallo, what did he started on the medium? He's on the medium, so he's going to run the softs and the hards. The drivers that have run the hards at the moment, you've got Serrano, Ura and Benelli, so they're sort of taking the pain now in this middle stint of the race, hoping that, of course, when they get into the latter stage of it, that they're going to be able to just, drive through and wait for the seas to part, essentially.
That's true, but I think because of them using the medium tires for 2 laps only, I see they want to use the soft tire compound for 2 laps as well. I'm just a little bit scared to see that the end of the second lap is going to be so, I don't want to say bad, but really, really slow for them, so that they can even see the finish lap here. So.
Oh, look at the closing speed here for Le Buttigieg on Alflia, then going through on the Dottinger up into 3rd place then for Thomas Le Buttigieg. So those are your 2 effective race leaders here, Drummond and Le Buttigieg at the moment, though they're in 2nd and 3rd on the road. Of course, Gallo, as we know, still has a pit stop. He makes that pit stop now. Goes for the medium tyres. Which way is he going to go in terms of this one? Surely it will be hard tyres for a middle stint and then soft tyres towards the end, or are they going to ignore that strategy and just do something completely different? Let's see how it is going to work out. Either way, Gallo has gone a lap longer than some of his other competitors, and it seems to have made it work okay so far. And he actually goes for the soft tyres, so he's going to have the hard tyres at the end of that one. Is that the way you'd have gone, Mick?
Wait, I'm just realising, Kilian and Thomas started the race on soft tyres, right?
Yeah.
So did they only do 2 laps on mediums?
Let's have a look. They did 3 laps on mediums, according to
okay.
one lap on soft tyres, then change up to the medium tyres.
Okay, then I was just seeing something wrong. My bad, I apologise.
Oh, sorry about it, we've all been there.
Like, what are you doing?
I got scared for a second there, but...
Well, so look, the upshot is now you've got Drummond and Le Buttigieg. They're now on the hard tyres to the end of this race, aren't they? They're not going to be pitting again because it would be completely pointless, you would assume.
Exactly, yeah.
Right, because obviously, the time you're going to lose, even if you went onto the soft tyres, it's not enough time that you would gain, essentially, even if you're on a quicker compound at the end of this one. So they're now in a position where, from now until the checkered flag, they're losing time compared to everybody else that's behind them. You've got Serrano, Ura and Benelli. They're on the hard tyres for the middle stint. What they're trying to do, I guess, is eke these out so they can get as fresh a soft tyres as they can for the end of it.
That's one of the plans they have, but on the same time to have as less fuel as possible.
Right.
Because for this race, you're using times for tyre wear around the circuit, which is a lot. Like, once your tyres are in a really bad shape, you're going to end up losing a lot of time compared to the other drivers who have much fresher tyres than you. And yeah, I assume at the end of this lap we might see Serrano going to go into the pits, as well as Paul Ura and Lucas Bonelli, unless they might go for a bit safer strategy to continue the race, or continue to get another lap on the hard tyre compound and finish off on the soft.
Well, that's the problem, isn't it? You do 2 laps on the soft tyre, you can do it if you're, the tyre whisperer, but it's, we were talking about it before the start of this race. It's not an easy thing to do.
Yes, because if you want to do 2 laps on the soft, your out lap alone has to be so gentle. Because once you do Kilian did here, a slide on the tyres, it's going to affect your tyre wear in the end. And with times 4 for the soft tyre compounds, this is something that tyre, doesn't like in the end.
Really interesting insights there from Mick Gazelle. I've been keeping an eye on the front of the field, Tozo Serrano and Paul Ura there on the hard compounder tyre. I mean, never count these guys out. You know, we know how quick the Spanish duo are. Serrano now 4 seconds the good of Paul Ura in that Porsche. What do you think, Mick? Do you reckon that strategy is the one? I mean, they're out on their own. I mean, they're on the hard tyre, but there's no one around them, not losing speed.
I think this might not be too bad to be on your own, because we've already seen with Kilian and Thomas Labrutali on the previous lap. If you are like getting stuck with traffic in front of you, you're going to end up losing a lot of time, which is not really optimal for your own stint. So if you're like on your own, you can also dictate your own race. And yeah, let's see. I think the end of the race is going to be pretty exciting.
Another look there of the pass of Labrutali on Mangano last lap. Back to lap 4, and we see Labrutali has gone right back up to the rear spoiler of Kilian Drimont. That 1.5 second gap gone as well. There is a fuel to consider in this race as well, so he might have put a little bit less in. Looking at he's got about the same fuel as Drimont right now. So very, very close, and that's really basically happened because Jay Murphy went onto on the medium compounded tyre and overtook them both and then put them back together again. Yeah, it's interesting how it's sort of caused this bottleneck effect now really here with Jay Murphy again being the cork in the bottle. We saw that with Labrutali in the opening stages of this race, and he sort of ended up back in exactly the same position here with Alifa, Drimont and Labrutali right on his rear wing, and let's see whether it's going to cost them time. I mean, Alifa here, again, he's not in a race with effectively what is the top two, and all the while they're stuck behind him. They're just hemorrhaging time corner by corner. They need to try and find their way through sooner rather than later.
But even if you want to let the other drivers behind you through because they're like in their own race in a different strategy, doing it at this circuit is so difficult to do, which some of the other drivers are also underestimating in the end.
Oh, look at that! Drimont getting aggressive, and Alifa into the wall! Side by side they go, that's going to cost Drimont. It might even open the door here for Labrutali to find his way through. Amazingly, they all managed to exit the corner in exactly the same positions and indeed the same direction as they entered, but that was pretty aggressive and robust, and a little bit scrappy from Kilian Drimont there.
Just as Mick was saying it there, he had to make the move. You have to just go for it sometimes, but it requires the other driver to let it happen. And right now there, Nathan Alifa did not allow that. We're now putting indicator on after the damage is done, I think. It's all right, I'm sorry, I'll get out of the way. And for good measure, hip check on the way by. These guys are not hanging around, but more importantly, all that time they spent there behind the Lamborghini has meant they've all lost time to the field. So